She is in charge of the money. She can buy whatever she wants, right?
No, she can't. You're wrong there.
Just turn the bill in.
All right, welcome everyone. Before we get started tonight, if you would join us in a prayer.
Bow your heads, please. Lord, thank you for the beautiful sunshine today, and thank you for the many happy signs of spring. As we approach the end of the school year, we are thankful for the dedication of our staff and students as they finish a very challenging year both in and out of the classroom. Be with the class of 2022 as they end their time with Franklin Schools. Please watch over them as they move on to new and exciting adventures. We wish them all the best, and we will miss them. As we conclude this school year, help us to look toward next year with the hope of a more normal life. Guide us this evening as we celebrate the many accomplishments of our students and staff and conduct the business of our district to make decisions that keep looking forward to make Franklin Schools the best they can be. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Lamb, before we go on, I should have brought this up to everybody earlier. Last week, we lost a web teacher that retired about 4 years ago. Tammy Green taught for many years in our district, and she passed away unexpectedly. If we could we just have a moment of silence and just, lift her up and her family during this time?
Absolutely.
Amen. The services are late this week at Friendship Baptist, and we'll make sure that we send something just on behalf of the school. But Brian, do you remember how many years? It was
No, a lot. I don't
was a
remember.
lot.
Yeah.
It was like over 40, I
Yeah.
think it
Yeah.
said in the paper today. She was there when I was there, so it's
Yeah.
been a long time.
Yeah, so she
I'm old.
finished up being the music teacher. She was in the
Yeah.
classroom for many years and then came out and taught the last couple of years as a music teacher. But we just want to just lift her up and just thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. All right, well, welcome everyone to our May board meeting, and I'll call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is for public comments. So if you have any comments regarding the agenda this evening, please step up to the microphone there in the back of the room. Mrs. Betts, I'll put you on the spot here for a minute. Have you got signed in to see if there's anybody online? I know that's what you were, you were shaking your head. I know we were. So we'll give Mrs. Betts a chance to sign in. We'll go ahead and move over to the board, and then we'll come back and check and see if we've got public. So from the board comments, Athletic Council, just wanted to let everyone know we had our joint city school board meeting, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, last week, but we announced at that meeting that we have a new basketball coach. So Coach Moss has joined us for that. So if you didn't see the Daily Journal, please go out and look online for the details, but we welcome Coach Moss to the school. The next group is Central 9.
So we have a meeting this Thursday. The proposal for their building project is $4.75 million, and they're bringing that proposal to that meeting on Thursday. We'll vote on it, and then it should come to our school boards on in the June meeting. They also are presenting their budget to us on Thursday, and since all schools that have received ESSER 2 money, they are proposing to increase their budget as well. So,
I gave her the good news today.
yes. Uh-huh.
So we can cancel them like they've canceled us?
You're the school board president.
That's all I have from them.
All right, thank you. Collective bargaining. No
Well,
real updates, but we
yeah.
do have the stipends to talk about this evening. Go ahead, Brian.
No, that's
Sorry.
it. Good.
David, any
The
update
only
on?
collective bargaining, we do need to schedule a time with Mr. Wertz and Mr. Lamb to have a discussion as we head into the summer. The biennium 2 years is a pretty nice increase for us, so we seem to talk about some steps, and I know that Ms. Gross has already been working on some ideas and strategies. So if we could look at our calendars in the next couple of weeks for sometime a meeting in June, that would be great. That way we could meet with FCTA maybe in July and just start the journey. Thank you.
All right, then communications.
We have not met.
Legislative. Mr. Wagner is not here. We'll go on to mental health.
They did hire a new SEL interventionist here at the high school, but we haven't met.
Okay. Music Council,
No update.
RDC.
Just one thing that we're talking about in the RDC, we have our city TIF districts and the county commissioners, is that right, are trying to put through a county-wide TIF, which would affect us all the schools in the county, and it would be the first one in the state, and there's some conversation back and forth, I think, that maybe we're on the RDC thinking that's not the best thing for us, but I just wanted everybody to be aware that that's something that's coming down the pipeline that we're talking about, so.
All right, our Superintendent Strategic Council.
We met at CBIS to look at 3 maps that started off with 8 maps of our district to redistrict the elementary setting. The next step for us is to actually attend PTO meetings. So we're getting those scheduled. Unfortunately, here it is in May, and a lot of people are still making those end of the year things. So right now, it looks like it's going to be late July and August for those PTO meetings. And then in September, my goal is to bring the two or three maps that we're discussing for the board, and then highlight the one that we think, and then in October, hopefully, actually adopt the new boundaries for August of 2022. And that gives parents about 8 months. It gives us plenty of time also to rearrange staff, because we know there's going to be some staff changes, and we know the FCTA, they're aware of it, the teachers are aware of it. We just don't know what it looks like just yet. So that's our timeline coming out of Superintendent Strategic Council.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I hit the wrong mouse button. And then I think the last one is our Diversity and Inclusion Council. We just met with Dr. Aziz to talk about our journey to date, and there'll be more to come in the next couple of months as we continue on that journey. So Mrs. Betts, I'll come back. No, thank you. So then we'll move into the next agenda item, which is recognition. So Dr. Worland, I'll turn it over to you.
I can start with individual student growth. You want to come back and do the proclamation at the beginning or the end?
Guess I need to follow the agenda, don't I?
You notice how Dr. Rowan is so nice.
That was great.
I can do whatever you like.
Managing upwards, I love it.
It's a brand move.
Well, I skipped over that because I have a black screen that I don't have anything that I can read. So why don't we move on to the next section, and I'll read that.
Maybe somebody here can help.
I'm going to try to open it one more time.
We will start then under recognition with individual student growth. We have a number of students, and I would say also families and teachers and staff to recognize. We're going to start with our Math Bowl state champs. We want to congratulate our Math Bowl state champs, the Web Spiders. Maybe some in our audience were Web Spiders at one time. There we go. They were in a 3-way tie and won the tiebreaker, giving them the victory. Congratulations also to their coach, Robin McGuire, for all the prep time she and the students put in for this competition. The students on our Math Bowl state champ team are Jocelyn Adams, David Mercer, Penny Mercer, Julian Ott, Molly McMillan, Kinley Sanders, Callie Taylor, Grace Eaton, Derek Johnson, Savia Patel, Holly Rader, Grayson Bishop, Dash Cruiser, Elizabeth Copey, and Lexi Martin. We would also like to congratulate the Creekside Elementary Cougars on a top 5 finish, as they were only 1 point away from a 4-way tie for first place. So congratulations to our students involved in the Math Bowl this year. Great job. Fifth grader Aaliyah Rodriguez and eighth grader Chase Allier each earned first place in their age division in the essay contest, which prompted students to write. They were asked to write about celebrating diversity is important to society because. These students were invited to read their essays at the May 6th historical rededication of the Palmer Community Center to the Booker T. Washington Community Center. Dr. Clendenning, Principal Moran, and I enjoyed watching the students present. Congratulations to those students, congratulations to their parents and to their teachers.
Dr. Ward, I think we have a highlight of the 2 speeches.
Oh, fantastic.
Is that Mrs. Betts or Mrs.? Yeah. Mr. Sprout always good for
Normally,
1 or
Mr.
2.
Singer.
Okay.
Celebrate each other's differences. It's just to show how you feel. This is because it means that they're not feeling accepted, because they're different. The best difference is many us unique. The difference is who we are. Just tell them how you feel and compliment them can change how they feel about themselves and make them feel more confident. And every reason why we should accept each other is because we should react. This is because knowing so many different people, others must believe in how their parents do. How their parents do. And if they're celebrating, that can cause their kids to do the same.
The more diversity and less than reason. Another important part about celebrating diversity is the beauty of the diversity. How beautiful would it be when anyone tried to when anyone on a live team and anyone else, amazing how many people on a live team and only one color. If you look at the world like that, you start to notice how beautiful a diverse world is.
Thank you. Again, congratulations to those students and their families and their teachers. And our band, congratulations to the members of the Franklin Community High School Wind Ensemble and Symphonic Concert Bands. The 2 ensembles received a gold rating with distinction at the Indiana State School Music Association Organization Festival. This is the 13th straight year the concert ensembles have received gold ratings. 13th straight year. This is the first time for both concert groups to receive the with distinction honor. Congratulations, great work to our students and our faculty. In addition to that, the Franklin Community High School Instrumental Music Department will be receiving their 10th Indiana State School Music Association All Music Award this year. The bands qualified for this year's award by receiving gold ratings in all Music Association events: marching band, jazz band, concert band, and solo and ensemble. Again, congratulations to all of those students, their teachers, their families for their hard work. Let's give them a hand. Collaboration?
For collaboration, I'm going to take this one. Recently, we were shared a bit of great news for Principal Rita Holman. Holman was selected as Principal of the Year for District 9 for middle school principals. She was selected by a committee of her peers for her highlights and learning opportunities that are high quality and also providing an outstanding culture in our school system. So we want to congratulate Principal Holman. She now moves on to the state competition, and she is one of 12 middle school principals that will be selected as Indiana Principal of the Year. So congratulations, Principal Holman.
All right, now I can read the proclamation for the teachers. So it's my privilege, as we've carried on the last few months, that this month we would like to recognize the teachers at Franklin Community Schools. So on behalf of the board and the administration, I have this proclamation in honor and recognition of those teachers. Because our teachers have continued to serve the students of Franklin Community Schools selfishly, they've remained flexible and accommodating throughout the many changes brought upon by COVID. And those teachers have still dedicated and valued in their departments and their value to the students here at the school. So now and therefore, we, the Franklin School Board of Trustees, and Dr. Clendenning, by virtue of the authority vested in us, hereby proclaim and recognize Tuesday, May 11th, as Teacher Recognition Day at Franklin Community Schools. And we've got this document that we'll be sharing with them. Each one of the schools will have a food truck come in tomorrow, provide lunch to the teachers. So trying to keep it at their school, but each one has a different variety of the truck that's coming in. So very well done, very much appreciated for all the hard work as we've gone through this virtual phase and now back into the class. And we thank you for all that work. All right. Moving to the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. This one here. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Christy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Becky. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
I vote yes, so the consent agenda passes.
Mr. Lamb, I would like to highlight that we just hired Kelly Cassidy to be the new FCHS choir teacher. She's coming to us from MSD in Decatur, and she hails from Elkhart, Indiana. So she has a lot of experience in both drama and music, and we're really excited to have her join our team. So please join all the administration in welcoming Kelly Cassidy as the choir teacher for next year.
Thank you for that, and welcome aboard, Kelly. Okay, moving to the next agenda item is our superintendent reports. And the first item is from our high school ag department update. And we have a
Welcome,
great
everybody.
representative.
I have a hard copy of what she's going to present for you, so you can take extensive notes.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We always bring, like, this is how we travel everywhere we go, so.
Thank you. You could get, if you don't mind, give Brian one.
He's-
Hey, Ryan.
Coach is here.
Coach is here, yeah.
It was a devastating loss.
Yeah, you're sitting there. Thank you.
Okay, so Dan just passed out kind of just a hard copy of the slides I'm gonna go through. For those of you who don't know, I'm Alicia Giese. I'm the agriculture teacher here at FCHS. And it's been like 3 years now that I came here for the first time, and then we just promised you guys we would come back and
and visit you every spring, so this is our annual visit. So we just kind of wanted to give you an update on kind of what's happening out in the, on the ACE plot and what's happening in the ag department. Mr. Bada and I have kind of been playing around with like what our mission is out there, and we really want to drive our program based on our student needs and then our mission. So our, the mission statement we've kind of created, actually Mr. Bada really created this, is to provide exceptional student learning focused on career opportunities, rich with hands-on experience, robust knowledge, community collaboration, strong leadership, and competitive skills in an open, engaging, inviting, challenging, and fun way. And that's kind of how Mr. Bada and I are trying to really build this program. We're trying to focus on that mission. And then I included, so the state of Indiana, if you've been following all the fun CTE changes they've been making, have been making a lot of changes to the curriculum for CTE departments across the state, which includes us. So I kind of created a little bit of like a pathway of how our students will be moving through our courses starting next year. They will all be required to take a principal's class in order to move on to higher courses. All the courses that you see that have the gray background, those are all dual credit now with Ivy Tech. So all students who take those courses would be getting college credit for those courses. And then anything that has the pink outline also fulfills a science credit for our students. So it kind of gives our students more of an opportunity to fill those credits for their diploma. And maybe a different pathway than a more traditional one. Okay, I just kind of wanted to go through quickly like where we started and how kind of how our journey has progressed, and I've got pictures for you guys because I'm a visual person. So we kind of started our project in 2018. 2019 is when we started planting the 9-acre plot here on the high school campus. We received our first grant for the project in 2019 as well, and that was from National FFA for $2,400. That's kind of that was the first kind of monies we got to really get that program started. That first year, we were able to donate over 400 pounds of vegetables to the Interchurch Food Pantry and the Cub Pantry as well. We also established a dairy steer leasing program within Franklin FFA, and we had 2 students exhibit dairy steers at the fair in 2019, or 2020. We started in 2019, they exhibited in 2020. 2020 was terrible, as we all know. It was just ugh. And COVID kind of made it challenging for us to work out in the garden. So we did plant the property, but we did not garden last year. So it kind of just, we were gardening thistles. That's what we were doing last year, but we're very excited. But last fall, we did receive the Johnson County REMC Operation Roundup grant for $4,600, which we are so excited about. And we've really kind of put that money to use this spring. We've been planting perennial berry bushes that we've purchased and have started planting out in the gardens this spring so far. We'll also be putting in a small orchard to try to start figuring out how to grow orchard trees. And then we are also going to be starting raising our very first batch of chickens that will hopefully make their way into our school cafeterias. So that's all starting, and that is all thanks to the Johnson County REMC grant that we received. So here's just a few pictures of things that we've been doing over the last couple of years. Donating, working out in the garden. It's just such a cool hands-on project for our kids. They love it so much. I kind of highlighted some of the funding things that we've used for our project so far. So the $2,400 grant that we received from National FFA, and then the $4,600 grant that we received from Johnson County REMC, and then I kind of just highlighted what kinds of things that we are purchasing with those grant monies. This spring, we've also been excavating. If you guys have been out there at all this spring, I'm sure you've seen what looks like a construction zone out there. And all of that is Mr. Bada has donated his skid steer and all of his time to do that, and he is just the best. He's also my dad, so I feel like I have to say that. He is really good, though. We have been kind of creating drainage out there. So that plot, like all that land out there, is basically fill from where we're standing. So we've been kind of redesigning the structure of the drainage and trying to add to the soil so that our garden is as productive and the soil is as healthy as possible. So what we've been creating out there are kind of waterways so that when it rains, it doesn't just mud up our garden and it's able to drain away. And there's grass growing in our waterways now, so we're very excited. The students in my classes, they came out and planted all the grass. They put down all the straw mats. They picked up rocks, which we picked up so many rocks. We actually started our own little architecture dig that we found, all kinds of fun stuff that must have been here at one point. But so the students have been very active in this project this spring. Here's a few more pictures. There's the student on the left of your screen. Mr. Bada was teaching her how to use a laser level to get our drainage just right. If you ever get to talk to Dan Bada, he is a perfectionist. So of course the drainage had to be perfect. And so that was a really cool opportunity for our students to get to experience how to use a laser level, which is not equipment that you would probably use every day. But it was really fun for them to learn how to do that. I took these pictures Friday morning, I think. And you can see the grass growing in our waterways, which is really exciting. It will keep erosion from happening, and it's really just exciting to see how it's starting to grow now. We also planted, this was about 2 weeks ago now, we planted our first rows of strawberries. So these are my intro to ag classes planting strawberry starts. We also planted some onions, so that was kind of the first stuff we planted out in the garden this spring. And it's starting to grow, so if you guys are out there, you should go check it out. They're growing, turning green.
No strawberries yet.
No strawberries yet, none yet, but the plants are there. Another exciting thing that we did in January of 2021, we haven't heard yet, so we're waiting on, we're at the edge of our seats, but in January 2021, we submitted a USDA Farm to School federal grant. The grant is up to $100,000. Our budget ended up being $99,000, $501. We will be notified sometime within the next month whether we receive that grant or not. We are so excited. A parent of one of my students, she helped me write that grant, which was like a job in and of itself. I've never written a federal grant before. It was a huge undertaking, but she was great. And the budget, that if we were to receive that substantial grant, some of the things that we wrote into our budget for that would be hiring a part-time coordinator for Farm to School, which a big part of the grant is getting the food to the cafeteria. So it's not just enough that you're gardening, it's that you've got to deliver that food to the cafeteria, which really takes a lot of focused work. So we felt strongly that having some type of a part-time person to take care of that would really fulfill the necessities of that grant. Other things that we wrote into that grant were fencing, produce scales, walk-in vegetable coolers. When we talked to Jill Overton, the cafeteria director, she also helped. She was a co-writer on this grant as well. She said that it's even there in the school cafeterias, they really struggle to have refrigerator space. So having hundreds of pounds of fresh vegetables is just not something that the high school cafeteria could handle at this time. So if we're really wanting to move forward with our Farm to School program, which I'm super excited about, and I'm so excited to meet our new cafeteria director too. But the walk-in coolers would be a really important part of that. And then culinary training for our cafeteria staff. She was really excited about this and providing training for the cafeteria staff all over the district on how to handle the raw produce and potentially raw proteins would be really important. And so that was something that we wrote into the grant as well, to provide our cafeteria staff with the training they would need to handle that fresh produce and proteins.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
On the coolers, it's a matter of, we have the footprint in the building, you just need the big coolers, or there's not enough real estate inside the cafeteria to handle the vegetables?
So there's not the, well, I don't know about the real estate. I actually have not toured the high school cafeteria, so I don't know. I know Jill said we have very large walk-in freezers. So handling like frozen protein would not be a problem for them. But the walk-in coolers for vegetables are what they're lacking. So having those raw vegetables that need to be kept in a cool space, they just don't have those coolers. Now, the real estate, I'm not sure about. I don't know about that. Now, like that grant money, it could supply, I mean, we could put those coolers into the cafeteria too. So, I mean, they could go anywhere. So some things we're wanting to do this year that's kind of on our to-do list is, which I've kind of started, but we haven't met yet, is to kind of, we'd like to create an advisory board that's a little bit separate from myself and our alumni, that's maybe has more of an outside voice that can help us drive our program the way that our students need to see it go, our community would like to see it go. So we would like some outside voices to kind of sit on that advisory board. And I've kind of reached out to different people to kind of sit on that advisory. We just haven't met yet. We're hoping to establish an orchard this year, which if anybody in here has ever grown apple trees or fruit trees, it's like a whole science in and of itself. So this year is kind of like our get our feet wet and try to figure stuff out year. I've talked to Mr. Ahouse, and we are very interested in establishing Christmas trees along the cross-country course here on the high school campus. We had mentioned wanting to start some Christmas trees, and Mr. Ahouse had just mentioned that they have always wanted to add trees to their cross-country course, so we thought that would be an awesome partnership with the cross-country team, and it would be a great way to kind of share our program with the rest of the school as well. So that's something that we're hoping to establish this year as well. We are going to be raising our first batch of pasture chickens this year for Farm to School. Another thing that we're really focused on is developing the best practices that will be beneficial for us as we move towards a successful Farm to School program. This is something like that everybody who's kind of on our advisory board right now is kind of diving in and has never done something like this. So this year, as we kind of start with little bits, a little bit of vegetables, maybe some proteins. Our goal this year is to really develop those best practices so that when we do get more proteins and more produce, or we want to move to the elementary schools, we've kind of got some experience under our belt. Let's see. Hopefully we can start, well, this we'll talk about here in a second, but we're wanting to grow the Franklin FFA livestock leasing program as well. Currently this year I have 10 students who are leasing a steer to show at the fair, which has just been a really fun program for us. Basically, students who live in town, maybe they just don't have the opportunity to raise their own livestock animal. We're giving them that opportunity to raise an animal, to show in the 4-H fair, and I think that 4-H is such a great organization for youth, and so it's just been a cool way to get kids involved in some of our local organizations. And then the last thing we're hoping to start doing this year is fundraising for a potential facility on the high school campus, which I'm going to talk about here. But I have some pictures for you guys first, because I love pictures. If you guys have ever been in my classroom or you walk past, I'm obsessed with cows. So of course this leasing program is right up my alley. But these are students, all of FCHS students, working with their animals that they will be showing at the fair this year. And this is at no cost to the students, so there's no cost to them to be able to do this program.
So what's the students' involvement then?
In the animal raising.
Yeah.
So basically, the students they're responsible for working with their animals, halter breaking them, teaching them to lead, and then I kind of work with them on how to exhibit your animals, and then during the fair week, they're in charge of taking care of their animals that whole week. And my goal is just for them to get that experience, and if it's something that they really love, then they can take it that step further and take their own animal next year. But my goal is just for them to get some experience, hands-on experience with an animal that they can call their own for that year.
That's great. And where are the cows actually located?
They live at my house.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they live here. If you guys have ever been past my room, I do bring the baby calves here when they're just a couple days old. They live here, and my students bottle feed them twice a day, but eventually they do really outgrow my classroom, so then they have to move home. So right now they all live at my house.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. That's a great program.
These pictures you're looking at now are some eggs that are living in our classroom right now. They're going to be hatching here this weekend. My students from animal science to intro to ag have been weighing the eggs. They've been checking the fertility. They've been studying the different breeds of chickens. You can see that one, we had some that hatched about 2 weeks ago now. And then we've got about 40 that will be hatching here this weekend. And these are all layer chickens, so these would all be egg-producing chickens. The meat chickens that we are trying to raise, we are going to purchase those as live chicks and not do the egg hatching on those. Our long-term picture would be implementing farm-to-school program in other FCS schools. It's definitely like a passion, I think, of all the adults in this program to not just involve FCHS, but to involve all the schools and get the elementary schools involved with this program as well. But that's a lot of work, so that's something we don't want to jump into too fast. So we want to kind of figure it out at the high school first. In 2022, we'd like to continue fundraising and then potentially start building a facility on the high school campus. We will be slowly transforming the row crop ground that you see here on the high school campus into pasture. We'll be building fencing on the 9 acres for livestock so that all those cows don't have to live at my house. Some of them could live here too. And then a big goal of ours is to seek opportunities for collaboration with other educational departments here at the high school. I would love it to see the science departments out there running experiments, to see the art department out there utilizing the natural beauty for their art. I would love to see those types of collaboration. So that's something that I think Mr. Bada and I are both really passionate about. We'd like to collaborate with other schools. We've already sort of collaborated with C9 a little bit, their vet science program. They are not able at this time to keep live animals on their property, so I've actually sent animals. I've been coordinating with the C9 vet teacher, and I've sent animals to C9 for them to examine, for them to do different things with. So I would love to continue that partnership with C9 and maybe grow that partnership since we're so close. And then community organizations and then other ag entities. We definitely don't want to limit this program to just our school. We'd really like to partner with the community and partner with other agriculturalists in our community. Okay, so I do love coming here and telling you guys stories, but then I also want to come and ask you guys stuff too. So this is where that comes in. So we have met with somebody from FBI just to get like a picture. I just wanted to bring a picture to you guys. If a building was ever something we could potentially build out there, this is something that it might look like. Originally, we were going to do one larger building. However, as we were kind of talking and laying it out, inside of that one building, we wanted to have vegetable handling that could go into our cafeteria and then also live animals, which we felt like would be difficult to pass food safety regulations if you had those two things together. We also would like to have a classroom out there so that our students could have classroom experience with the vegetable handling, with the live animals in a structured way. And then one of the buildings then would be the second building would then be for livestock and storage. And again, this is just kind of something that we've kind of come up with as a possibility. The second picture that you see is kind of blurry, but what that is the 9 acres. And that would kind of be where those buildings would be. The buildings are not big. I think we're 40 by 80. So they're not huge buildings. It wouldn't take up very much of that 9 acre space. And the location is not that's just where they put it, but it could, we're very flexible. Although, with all the work that Mr. Bada did on the garden, I said, we're not putting it here.
So when we're looking at this, the grass area is Mr. Bada's work on the garden, right?
Yes, that grass area is our garden.
Okay, so that's
Yeah, which would be nice. I mean, the building closest to the garden would be the vegetable handling building. So it would be easy access as harvesting and getting those into the vegetable handling room. I'd be closer for that.
What's the approximate price per building? Do you have any ideas?
Well, we have not, I didn't price it. Oh, I know, right?
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
We weren't sure. So when we did this, I mean, this is the first
That's
that
okay. If
we've
you're not
been-
prepared, that's okay. I just thought.
We
I'd
just
ask.
didn't know like what kinds of, could it just be a steel frame building? Does it, like being on a school and having a classroom in it, what the regulations
Sure,
would
sure.
be on a building like that? We just weren't sure. So the building, that we have looked at is just, kind of
So it's just.
Kent knows, he knows more.
Initial figures.
This is our alumni president. He's been great.
So, my name's Kent Gross. So it's just some initial figures working with FBI buildings. Just for the building frame itself, the structures, the windows, the doors, and concrete runs about $35 a square foot. So you're talking about $115,000 or so. And that would probably be just for the animal handling and the storage building alone. Once you get into the other building where you have to put the classrooms in and do the vegetable handling, stuff like that, it's gonna be a little higher in price. Now, we don't have any figures back.
That's
for
fine.
that.
I had no clue.
But just,
So,
but just initially, that's
Thank
what,
you.
that's what we're talking.
yeah, it's great.
This picture is just kind of like a floor plan, if you will, of the two buildings and what they might look like. We kind of had laid out what we would like for those to look at. So you can see we would have a classroom in one. In the back of that, we would have the vegetable prep area with tables and wash stations. We'd have coolers and freezers. In the classroom, we would like to have like a chute for animals. If we wanted to bring animals in to perform vet surgeries or anything like that, we would have an ability to do that in the classroom, which would be super nice. And then the barn building would basically be a fairly open floor plan where we could keep livestock and then storage for equipment. Depending on what you guys tell us today, we would anticipate possibly starting to publicly fundraise for our building. We would like to reach out to agricultural entities, not only in Johnson County, but across the state of Indiana, to help us potentially fund this project. The FFA alumni, we've kind of been organizing efforts, but we haven't started anything. We haven't publicly talked about this project at all. And this effort of the monetary would be, this money would be raised for the physical building. One of the caveats of that USDA grant that is like $100,000 was it cannot fund any physical structures. And then the last thing is just the donations that we've received for our project so far. Really total over $20,000 in donations that we've received. And these include excavation work, drainage, crop consulting has all been donated, tillage, compost, all the seed and fertilizer that gets, like all the corn and beans that you guys see growing out there are donated from seed companies to us. All the fertilizer gets donated to us. And then we've also received a very nice cash funds as well from community members. We had a farmer who donated a semi-load of grain this fall anonymously, so we can't even thank them, but we've had amazing support from our community so far. So I guess to end, let's see, I lost my slide. Really, we wanted to come and share what we've been doing, but we would also like to ask the board if maybe we could start having more talks about this project in more detail possibly. And then also along with that, and maybe it's premature, but if there would be a possibility of us starting to publicly fundraise in August, if that's something, and maybe there needs to be more conversations before that occurs, but that's kind of the only thing we ask of the board tonight. That's all I got.
Well, first off, thank you for the time that you've put into this and just the time you're putting in on the program. I mean, it's evident on that, so thank you for that. If you would go back, though, to the picture of the overview, of the barns. There you go. So I think I remember last year when you guys came in and you gave us the layout on the property. We talked about dividing that up. We were going to still have a cash crop. We were going to have the garden. We were going to have the orchard, and then a small area for the animals. So it looks like, if I heard right, we're flipping that a little bit, and we're going to put more area for animals, either handling or the housing there than what we originally thought, right?
Well, we're definitely going to do more, like, kind of phase out the row crops for pasture space.
Okay.
As Mr. Bowden and I have we're still learning.
Sure.
And doing like intensive rotational grazing would maintain those pastures so that it never gets like muddy, and it's also healthy grass. And so having a larger pasture space that you could intensively graze, whether it's goats or sheep or a few cows, whatever that is, doing that intensive grazing on more space would maintain a much prettier look to the pasture space, which I think would be really important.
Sure.
So on that, then the creek side would be the plot that we would take all the crops from at this point, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. Now, eventually, I mean, we are gonna plant it this summer.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because
right.
but eventually we would phase that out, and then it would just be the creekside
And
plot.
would Creekside still be a learning lab, though? The kids would still get some access to that? We would just be one field trip or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think my ask from the board, and I'll let the rest of the board, is definitely we need to have more conversations, right? Because there's some specifics around that fundraising. We'll want to make sure that we get Mr. Young, making sure that we've got things covered there. So keep that going. I think that I would like for you guys to build on that plan that we had maybe a year ago. It doesn't have to be the right one, but just so we've got an idea of what we're going to use the ground for, the direction we're heading, right? That we're staying on a plan and we don't change it each year, right? To drive up. I like the flow that you guys have got, that you've presented. And then just a side note, you're way too young to know this one, but if you collected all those rocks, maybe the pet rock thing needs to come back.
I have had
as
so
a,
many
you know.
students who are like, can we paint these rocks and put them out here? So, yeah,
That could
yeah,
be your
lots
first
of fun.
fundraiser, yeah.
That's great.
I'm Dan Bada. And I wanted to respond to your comment about the row crops and like what we use the land for itself. It'll be driven by, there clearly will be, we would anticipate a lot of demonstrations, research that would include row crops. I mean, that's a big part of Johnson County's agricultural. And of course with the other plot out at Creekside. But we just don't want to need to raise 8 acres of row crop. The need for more land is going to be pushed by if we want to have the access to animals and animal research and animal demonstrations, and oh my gosh, the potential for hands-on learning through different projects and lab work or whatever is just in the hundreds, if not thousands, out there.
Any other questions?
No, that was a great presentation, though. Thank you very much.
I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for coming back to us. I did have a question on the funding. Is the expectation, your thoughts, that this would all be publicly fundraised, or?
I would say we don't have super high, we don't have expectations at all. We are going to reach out to our communities. Indian Creek High School, they put up a barn 2 years ago, and they got around $50,000 donated publicly for that facility. Now ours would be more because our facility would be a little more in depth, but we have hopes that we would get the majority of it publicly funded from donors and agricultural entities.
But we're open to potential wisdom about that relative to, what the taxpayer is going to think relative to, and the people donating, that balance. That's, if you guys want to pay for all of it, that's great.
We'll double the size then.
Yeah.
But no, we don't have, we're happy to do the work in whatever direction would be most beneficial, so.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Keep up the great work. I love to hear it.
Mr. Lamb, I have a suggestion. I know my orange idea guy's coming out right now. You mentioned the advisory board that you're starting.
Yes.
I think it would probably be wise if an administrator jumped on board and sat on that.
I totally agree. I actually asked Mrs. Christie Odds.
Well,
She has agreed to.
I'm
sit
going
on
to
my
take it
board.
one step further. I think that we need to have Mr. Sewell probably join
I love
from
it.
the operations side, and it would then become in August, part of the superintendent's conversation and communication. So each month, we would have an update on what's going on, because this is a pathway. We've made some plans, looking at a teacher back at the middle school as the program continues to grow, also the CTEs. So all these things are coming together. I think in order for us to stay in the constant communication, it would be wise if we did that. So I think
That's a great
that
idea.
would continue the conversation, and each spring when we come back, that you all have had background knowledge on what's going on, similar with music council, legislative council, superintendent's task force, what else?
No, that's a great
That would
idea.
be amazing.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Sewell.
All right, we'll move into the next item, and Mrs. Sperling, we have the mental health update.
Mr. Lamb, is it okay if the?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
all.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can everybody, okay, everybody can see it right now. Perfect. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, well, good evening, school board and friends and FCS community. Thank you for having me here tonight. I know there was a few little technical difficulties last time that I was here, so thank you for allowing me to come back and share some information. I'm going to try to keep this brief and kind of like a 50,000-foot overview, since I've already kind of touched on a lot of these things. This particular pyramid that you see here, this is our mental health systems of support. This is what I created for myself to provide guidance, because this is my overarching goal of what I'm hoping to create for FCS over the next couple of years. So I'm not going to go in depth about it, but obviously you can see that it's a tiered level. Tier 1 is for the majority of students, Tier 2 is for targeted students and that kind of group atmosphere, and then the Tier 3, that is bringing in mental health supports for students one-on-one. And so you'll see me bring this up when I talk about my mental health updates in the future, so I can continue to update you guys on my progress. And as School Board Member Becky Nelson stated, we do have a new SEL interventionist at the high school. So I just wanted to show a picture of our awesome team who are doing fantastic. So Carly is on the end. Carly Geis is her name. She's actually a former Franklin student. So we're really excited to have her back in with us. And believe it or not, this is her first week. Last week was her first week, and she's already been working with students on a regular basis. So it's awesome. She's just jumped right in. Next, I'd just like to point out that all of the mental health support that our SELs provide, I have a system that tracks all of that. And really what I just wanted for you guys to focus here is that I have an expectation of our SEL team to provide direct service, so that one-on-one support working with students, and they need to have a 65% or higher percentage rate. And as you can see across the board, if you look at our direct service numbers for CBIS middle school and high school, each of the SELs are doing a fantastic job and have exceeded that goal. So I'm very proud of all of them. Again, this is just another breakdown of the mental health support by school. And this is from August of 2020 to April of 2021. And so you can quickly see how many students were served in each building and how many mental health sessions were provided. I did want to note that the reason why CBIS has a little bit lesser number That is because that particular interventionist started 3 months after the other ones did. So if she had started right on point, then her numbers would look very similar to the others. And this is just kind of summarizing all 3 buildings together. So we've had 207 students served with 1,194 mental health sessions. And again, this is just through April, so we haven't, this number will continue to grow for May. Next, I'd just like to outline the top 5 presenting student concerns. I think this information is very important. Myself and my team, we use this for discussion in regards to what kind of mental health supports we are going to provide and what additional professional development opportunities we're going to create and any new strategies that we want to use with our students. So as you can see across the board, anxiety is the #1 pretty much, between family issues and anxiety. So next school year, we'll be having some more conversations and, what new strategies do we need to implement to help our students kind of lessen that anxiety that they seem to be struggling with so often. And then, of course, we have the beautiful therapy dogs. I wish Millie was here so we could show her off. But really quickly, I just wanted to share, I could have, really powerhouse down and provided you with some statistical data and threw a lot of numbers at you, but really, I wanted to share this. We have Millie Mail and Hero Mail, and a student at Northwood wrote a poem about Hero. Growing up is hard, I know, like when you have to go. So just find a friend, then be happier, so the fun in your life will never end. The name is Hero, and he's older than 0. He's a dog, and he's 2 years old. Because of his fur, he's never cold. He can't wear masks, but he can still do tasks. And he's the best pup I know, so I hope he'll never go. And I had to read this because this is just, there are hundreds of these that we get. I mean, just the amazing miracle of these therapy dogs is just overwhelming. And again, next time I will share some number data, but I just thought this was too cute and I had to share.
Love it.
I also wanted to touch a little bit on the miracle of Millie as well. So really quickly, this is from Doug Adams, behavior interventionist at Webb Elementary. And he was a non-believer in the therapy dog program. He did not want to become a handler. And after this, you will be able to tell he's completely changed his tune. He said, we had a room stirred up over a situation at Miss C, and she asked me if I could go with Millie and just sit in a corner for a while. Seeing how that is on my favorite list of things, off I went. Think of the old Run Rudder cartoon, leaving her in my dust. When I got to the room, the tension was palpable. I made myself comfy on the floor, Millie made herself comfy on me, and then I just observed. The room got noticeably quieter. Nothing was said. We were not even acknowledged, but it got quieter and calmer. Students would sneak a look at Millie and smile. When I noticed that, I got to where I'd look and notice those smiles lasting longer than the glances. I observed, I am not about to attempt any explanation, but in my role as observer, the temperature of the room went down. The palpable became palatable. This is not the first time this has happened, but maybe the first time I had the wherewithal to be in that room, aware of my surroundings, not counting heads, but feeling what they were feeling. I was conscious of it, but doubt that they were or would have been. So at an appropriate time, I quietly left, taking my uncompleted surveys with me. I am no longer surprised by the power of Millie. I'm just in awe of it. And again, this is just one little brief nugget of information that from the behavioral interventions perspective, let alone how the children are being impacted by these therapy dogs. So it's just truly overwhelming. Really quickly, just a few more things. Wanted to talk about the Student Assistance Program. This is the partnership that we have between adult and child. Real quickly, you can see that the number of sessions provided for our students is 53, and we've had 33 students that have benefited from the program. Again, this is a partnership that offers 2 free confidential mental health sessions. As of right now, it's just available for middle and high school students only, but as this program continues, we will look at opportunities for opening it up to more schools. But so far, I would say that it's been a success. It's been bumpy, but it's been a successful partnership so far. Next, I'm not really gonna go through these. I just wanted to be able to outline and show you that the next 2 slides have check marks next to them. That means that these have all been accomplished tasks since the last time I was here presenting. So our biggest one, obviously, that we have hired our 4th interventionist, and I talked about that. Really quickly, I'd just like to point out that we've also started the process for the 3rd therapy dog. The Creekside is the school that will benefit from the 3rd dog. We have paid the deposit and we are on the wait list, and we have already started communicating with the handlers and have a pretty good team identified at Creekside, so we're excited about that. Next slide again, this is just, again, for you to look through and note that some of the awesome things that have been completed since the last time I was here. Again, this is just an overview, really quickly, of a lot of the new processes and procedures that have been implemented district-wide since I have joined a little over a year ago. This last slide is just really looking ahead. So from looking at the 2021-22 school year, this kind of outlines the things that I plan on focusing on, especially during the summer and next school year. The biggest one is starting to pilot more SEL district lessons and activities. And we're gonna look at different things about what fits with each school, and we're gonna start piloting some of those things. I also will be focusing a lot on restorative practices. As you can see from here, it really helps to address underlying reasons why students behave the way that they're behaving. So it's really looking at discipline in a different way. And so I plan on doing a lot of research to find out if this is something that we think is going to benefit our students at FCS. And the rest of the information here is really a lot of evaluating a lot of data to make sure, are the things that have been implemented so far, are they working? Do we need to make changes to those? Do we need to remove those things and add new ones? And then, again, thanks to our community. I couldn't do what I do without the community support in the school board and FCS. So I appreciate your time this evening, and I'm welcome to questions. Yes, sir.
You've answered this for me probably 7 times, but can you talk me through the partnership with adult and child? So, in this context, so a kid comes and they are having some kind of situation, so they need services. So they run through their 2 free whatever, right? And then we identify the next step. What happens if kids, either mom and dad don't believe in mental health, so they're not putting money forward, or their insurance doesn't cover it? What is that next step? And I guess, are you seeing that? And if you are, whose role is it, and who's handling that kind of piece?
Ryan, that is a very, very big question that you just asked. There's lots of
I'm
layers.
full of them. I'm full of big questions.
There's a lot of layers to that question. So first of all, they do get their 2 free sessions, and this is really for like crisis prevention. When you try to find mental health services in the community and whatnot, it takes a very long time to establish that relationship. So really, this cuts down on a lot of time, and it gets kids into seeing a licensed mental health professional very quickly. So at the end of those 2 sessions, if parents have commercial insurance, then they are provided services to be able to connect them with additional opportunities. Sadly, if parents do not want to continue or identify mental health supports for their students, there's not a lot we can do. However, if there is an SEL interventionist in their building, so between CBIS and the high school, that can be an alternative for students, and it's been a wonderful partnership that we've had so far. But again, if the parents aren't on board with certain things, then it really ties our hands.
Are you seeing that?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a lot of times when I might get involved, and I'll have conversations with the parents, just kind of helping, coaching, mentoring, and guiding, and hoping for a better outcome. There are several times I've been very successful, and there's been some times when I haven't been so successful.
Do most employer-sponsored insurance plans cover this kind of stuff?
Yes. So absolutely, it's just it's a very frustrating road to deal with certain insurance companies. Medicaid covers quite a bit and really kind of lays the groundwork for children getting a lot of great mental health services. A lot of commercial insurance, it's not so much, and it's harder, especially if we want to provide like skills-based mental health support. Private insurance really doesn't pay for that at all. So if we want to involve a child into a program to learn life skills or coping skills, you know, or be a part of something like that, that's not something that a student could get from their commercial insurance. So that's why we try to identify how we can implement these things in the school setting.
Are there gaps where it's not the parents' lack of support, but it's funding or whatever that you need additional help with?
Absolutely. It happens quite often. So we've really bridged the gap with the SELs and bringing them into the district. However, when a student's family does have commercial insurance and let's say they can't afford the copay, that does happen quite often. I work with them in the community to try to find additional supports. I've called several insurance companies trying to battle that out for families because they just don't know the right questions to ask and how to navigate that, and there's not a lot of great information out there. I'm so sorry. So I'm actually looking at some new opportunities and with some potential community mental health agencies like the Bowen Center and Adult and Child, so that maybe we can have an opportunity to bridge that gap. But those are longer conversations and ones that would take some additional, there's going to be a financial expectation there. So
Yeah.
we're definitely entertaining conversations, let's put it that way.
Okay, well, I mean, well, if there are like tangible ways that we can be helpful, let us know that.
Absolutely.
I just feel like we're ahead of the game on where mental health is. And so like maybe some families, and it sounds like insurance, they're not where we are yet. And so if we can help bridge the gap so kids don't fall through the cracks, we want to be a part of that.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mrs. Burnley, no question. What you're doing, you mentioned, you've only been here a very short period of time, and you've set up a really, really nice program. You've got a lot of stuff done in that short period of time. I would like to put on your radar, like for you to come back once a quarter to give us an update on where
Absolutely.
you're at, right?
I'd be happy
Keep
to.
that right in front of us. It is on from a board. We've got somebody looking at mental health, reporting on that, but I'd like for you to come in once a quarter to give us an update where you're at on that roadmap, on the things you want to do, and then don't be afraid to ask us where we can help. Where do you need our
Absolutely.
help?
Will do. I'd be happy to come back. Thank you guys so much and have a
Yep.
wonderful evening.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is our Johnson County Public Library. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Hello, I'm Chris Colderup, and I'm from the Johnson County Public Library. I'm at the White River Branch in the Children's Services Department. You can come see me anytime. I would love to have visitors. My daughter goes to Webb. I'm like, go Spiders! I was so happy to see Millie here. So I'm here this evening to provide you with some updates from the library. So included in your handouts are May's Library Program Guide and our 2020 year in review. So, like most organizations, we showed resiliency last year, navigating through the pandemic. We optimized our curbside service, developed the delivery service model for anyone unable to visit the library due to illness, and we provided online programming. We have protective measures in place at each library for visits and computer use. So 2021 has been a year to look forward to. On March 23rd, we held the ceremonial groundbreaking for the new Clark Pleasant Branch construction project. It's to be located on US 31 in Whiteland. The 17,200 square foot library will replace the current 10,000 square foot branch and provide flexible and dynamic library services and provide a community center for the towns of Whiteland and New Whiteland. While residential and commercial growth continue to expand in this region of the county, the new library will be a destination for families and individuals who want to learn and connect with their community. Some of the highlights include lots of flexible meeting spaces, a teen center, a robotics learning lab, an adult learning center, and an early childhood learning space. Our library foundation will also be fundraising for a nature trail and community garden, as well as public art and additional features for inside the library. We have a courier van that goes to every branch Monday through Friday, so if you're like, I don't want to drive up there, we will deliver it here to Franklin, so don't worry about that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to talk about our Explore Summer program. So it starts next Monday. It goes from May 17th to July 31st. Students can register to participate in our free Explore Summer program. They can read, complete learning challenges, attend programs, and earn fun prizes. Last year, we read nearly 2 million minutes as a community and adapted our program to a virtual format. But this year, we are returning to in-person. So we'd love to see every student from the Franklin Community Schools and participate in our Explore Summer. So by partnering with our schools on this program, we can help combat the summer slide. Don't do it. And keep kids learning and reading all summer. So it's our hope that by working closely together, we'll keep more Franklin students reading and learning this summer. And we plan on reading 3 million minutes together this summer. And we think Franklin students can help us exceed that goal. 5 million! That's what I want. Come on down to your favorite Johnson County branch and register for the Explore Summer program, and we'll get started on a world of adventure. Thank you for letting me come.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions? Yes.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
All of you can register too. We have fun.
Do books on tape count in minutes?
Yes,
Outstanding, so
yes, you can write and listen.
that's exactly what I do.
Someone can read to you. That counts for you, the person listening.
All right.
Mrs. Gross, you always have the opportunity
I
to follow
do,
somebody
I
that's so
do.
energetic. I was going to say, I think we need to put you at the
At the
top,
beginning one.
right?
Okay, it's budget season. So, believe it or not, it's time to work on the 2022 budget. So I put together a calendar. The dates haven't changed much. We'll do the normal workshop at the August, regular scheduled August meeting, our public hearing at the September meeting, and then the board will adopt the budget at the October meeting. So nothing's really changed in that calendar, just went up a year. If there are no questions, I'll move on to the calendar for bond issuance. At the February retreat, we did talk about options that we have for bond issuance this year. So you have a couple calendars before you that Jane at Ice Miller put together. Mr. Sewell is working on engaging some professionals to provide some design and project estimates. And we will, in order to stay on schedule, we'll need to have those estimates by the July meeting. So at that meeting, we will probably have Jane come in and kind of talk through what options we have, whether we should go with the GO bond obligation or the lease option. GO bond is a little less complicated and a few less steps, and our funding would be available about the end of October. But the lease option has a couple of advantages. It doesn't go against our debt, but instead we pulled the building corporation into the process. So Jane will be able to explain that in further detail when she speaks with the board in July. Any questions on that? She's developed a nice little script for us, so step by step, so we should be on track to move forward with that if the board decides to do that.
All right, any questions for Tina on that? Thank you. We'll move into the action items. The first item is under our CARES, Dr. Worland and Mrs. Gross.
I'll go ahead and start with CARES 2. Our CARES 2 application, as you know, we got an allocation of $2.1 million. We submitted our application a couple of weeks ago, and after providing some additional documentation and explanation, they did approve our application. Some of the things included in that application were a new teaching position for developmental preschool, some funding for the iRead program that's going on right now. A large chunk of that is a 2% appreciation stipend for all employees, and I'll go into further detail about that later in an action item. Another large part of CARES 2 is HVAC updates for Webb to improve the air quality in that building. Ms. Sperling talked about additional therapy dogs, and we have three additional therapy dogs in that grant. And then the other items are IT items, software, and other expenses that we incurred and originally submitted to FEMA. We did hear from FEMA last week, and it looks like we're not going to be eligible for those funds. So we'll be able to shift some of those expenses over to CARES and get reimbursed for those expenses that have already been paid out of the 2020 budget. Any questions on that?
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Thank you, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christy. Ryan, how do you vote? Brian?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
didn't know who you were talking
Christy?
to.
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion passes. All right, we'll move on to the next one, the MOU for the teacher stipend.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the 2% stipend for all employees. In order to be able to do that on the teacher side, we do need to submit a memorandum of understanding to IRB along with our collective bargaining agreement. So I am requesting ratification for the MOU for a 2% stipend to all certified staff. And this is to compensate them for the extra work that occurred during the school year related to COVID.
Any questions for Tina?
Just, I want to make sure I understand. So this is just for the teachers, but the rest of the staff also get the stipend, is that right?
Yes.
That's the next one on the.
Okay.
The next resolution will be for support staff.
Perfect.
Mr. Lamb, also, it should be noted that we have created documents for all people that describe what they did over and above, and the representative supervisor have had to sign off on those for the different subgroups, and we are keeping those on file in the business office. If anybody wants to question or comment on those.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, I'll move that we pass this item. Do Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, gents. Ryan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Christie? Becky?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Next item is the resolution for our support staff stipends.
On the previous item, I probably should have noted that the teachers' union has ratified that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution for support staff. In front of you, you have a resolution to approve the 2% stipend going to all support staff employees. We wanted to recognize the extra work that they have performed this school year. So we calculated a 2% stipend on projected earnings for this year.
All right, any questions for Tina? Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Is it you, Brian?
Yes, I don't care.
Okay, Brian.
I
Hey,
won't take
Brian, and then second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christie. Brian?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion passes. Next item is the book rental fees.
Book rental and fees were presented at the last meeting. There have been no updates or changes. The only thing I would like to add is, as we start talking about ESSER 3, which has not yet been released by the state, the estimated amount is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.8 million. Part of ESSER 3 includes some one-to-one technology for the next 2 years. So you will notice that Chromebook charges are included, but if we do get ESSER 3 approved, we will come back to the board and amend that at a later meeting once we know. So I did want to make that note. But there have been no changes to the documents as presented at the last meeting.
Dr. Whirling, what is the total amount that we collect each year in book rental? Do you have any idea?
You know,
I wouldn't want to say that off the top of my head. I've looked at those numbers, but this year, we've had more trouble collecting, for sure.
I'm just wondering what the total, what we bring in. Just if someone could tell me that at some point. It doesn't affect my vote today, but I'm just curious what the magnitude of that.
I can provide that information to the board.
Thank you.
I think on that same note, it's how much we don't collect.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's really starting to
Yeah,
escalate.
I'm trying to figure out like how much are we
Yeah, so
asking for?
We
what
actually
we're
have that, Ms. Gross did that calculation and went back several years for the story. And as you heard, Dr. Worland, we're gonna ask for relief in the Chromebooks, because one thing that we did see, when we started bringing Chromebooks in, and then with COVID bringing Chromebooks really forward, we started to see less money being brought in. That does impact us, obviously, and also goes into debt service, which ultimately gets spread out across everybody. So we'll have that information. Actually, Tina does have it available. We'll just send it out in Friday notes. But that's the reason that we're trying to extend out take the Chromebooks out. And then additionally, I think we're coming up with a new strategy on Chromebooks. We've talked about that with Mr. Sprout, and we'll bring it to the board. There's still going to be some ask for the parents, but obviously we can't lose $300,000. And I think just off the top, that's roughly about what we were losing in general. So that's obviously a lot of money.
losing because people aren't paying.
Yeah.
And at the end of the Chromebook, does the kid own it, or do you turn it back in?
They turn it back in,
It's like book rental.
but it really doesn't. By the 5th year, it's on bended knee,
Yeah.
trying to make it to get to their end. But yeah.
Ryan, this year, we billed a little over $500,000, collected about $360,000, so we have about $150,000 still unpaid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I've got some historical numbers, too, that I'll send to the board.
All right, any other questions for Tina? Do I have a motion for this item?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Christie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Becky. Brian?
Yes.
I don't know who. Yeah, I'll say yes.
Mr. Work? Mr. Work?
Whoever you're talking to, I'll say yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion passes. On to Parent Square.
Good evening. I did find out a little bit more information just to talk a little bit about the implementation process. We did confirm that Blackboard ends June 30th, so Parent Square is set to begin on July 1st. They said that they would be able to kind of provide us just complimentary services beginning now until that July 1 launch date. They said it typically is a 3-week process, but they tried to make it easy for our IT team, especially since we're with Power School. They felt like it would be pretty easy. I've identified a few teachers who also act as either coaches or club sponsors in the district to possibly serve as pilots for the first semester. Our plan is to go live as a district and at each building level, semester 1, July 1, and then hopefully have some of those pilots to work out the kinks at that teacher level, and then start to bring everyone on board semester 2. They also provided launch kits for us to review, so we have videos, letters, tutorials, everything you can imagine to onboard both staff users and our parent users. So it seems to be a pretty user-friendly process, and I am happy to answer any questions.
I think no questions, but it is, I think we talked about the last time that we were going to try to phase it in, but now it's going to be that, a hard switch, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Christie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Wertz,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
I vote yes, that passes. Thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Betts.
you.
Now to early release.
So, Dr. Clendenning, based on a lot of feedback from parents, teachers, community members, we decided that it's necessary to go to one time, whether it is early release or late arrival, to make it easy on all of our families with multiple students in multiple buildings. We needed to arrive at one time for the PLC time. So we put together a survey for both staff and parents. They were separate surveys. We had 213 teachers respond to the survey and 1,310 parents respond. So we were pretty happy with those results. Can you go down to, sorry. The next one, please. So while we had a really exciting response, you'll see that teachers prefer to have their PLC time in the afternoon, which means the district would go with an early dismissal. Of those 213 responses, we had 52 teachers that indicated they really didn't have a preference. Typically, that is something we always offer as an answer, is no preference, or kind of in the middle on this one, don't really care either way. In this situation, and you'll see it with the parent responses as well, the amount of no preferences really kind of skewed the data. If they were on one side, they would have an overwhelming choice for early dismissal. If they were on the other side, it would be overwhelming for late arrival. If you'll go to the next one, this just kind of outlines the demographic of parents. So you can see they were able to check if they had multiple students in multiple buildings. And then on their survey results, same thing. We had 38% prefer that late arrival, 45% prefer the early release, but we had 205 indicate that they had no preference. When we looked through the comment section of teachers and parents, it was pretty balanced. From the employee standpoint, especially at that elementary level, they wanted to keep children getting up on the same time every day, kind of keep that morning routine pretty standard. On the secondary side, there was a lot of concern for extracurricular activities and who's going to monitor these students from dismissal to their extracurricular activity time. both responses were really the same across the board, both parents and teachers. A lot of the no responses, or the no preferences, indicated that they were very flexible and that they were able to kind of drive their kids when they needed, but they were also worried about that extracurricular time, whether or not it was having their students supervised or if they were gonna have to come to the school, pick them up, and then bring them back 40 minutes later. And it doesn't seem like a big time, but a lot can happen in 40 minutes. And so we just wanna make sure that we've got a plan in place for whichever route we take. Some of the other information that we received from parents was supervision for their elementary kid, but then a lot of them also said that they already are and would continue to use Cub Care. And there really wasn't much of a change in their transportation preferences. Most of them, whatever they do now, they would continue to do. One of the things that we found was interesting is we had a lot of first-year secondary parents who didn't realize that secondary kids participated in late arrival. They thought it was strange that we currently offered 2 choices, even though that's how we've always done it since PLC, based on the feedback. So we wondered if they were some of the ones that maybe didn't understand what that late arrival was when they were initially offered the survey. Dr. Clendenny, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, thank you very much for pulling the survey together and also administering it. At this time, we would like to recommend that we move to a unified time and that we go with the majority, and that's for an early release. We understand that we're gonna have to make some arrangements at the secondary level for those kids. And I'll tell you, early on, it will probably be with some of the CARES Act people through the ESSER grants, because they already get paid, so we can house those kids. But I think it's appropriate because CBIS also has not had to have a unified time because they've had to split staff, and there's some teachers that haven't had PLC. So with that, we're gonna recommend early release, and just like we do for everything else, we'll study it, we'll do plan, do study, adjust, and maybe come back. It allows the elementary to really keep what they've been doing, and the high school will have to make an adjustment.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I guess I do.
Okay.
So the one thing that I read, right, is that sleep is pretty important. So how did that come into your equation?
Yeah, that's a really good question that did come up. Robin, you want to go and talk about that?
Sorry, it did come up quite a bit in the survey. Like I said, anything that came up, it was really balanced between others. So whereas you had a lot of people indicating that, especially at that secondary level, that extra sleep was helpful for them in their scheduling and just in general. That was kind of counterbalanced by the same people who said routine was more important to them than the extra sleep. I don't know that anyone's an expert in sleep that took the survey, but they were both pretty balanced.
Okay, thanks.
And Mr. Wertz, one of the things that I think we will be reviewing as we introduce new boundaries for our school districts, I think we need to look at times. The board has challenged us to make sure we don't have long bus rides. One way to adjust the bus ride is also giving us a different time and space. We're not going to have time to make a decision today and next August change. In 2022, I do think that would be a chance that we're going to change that time and maybe answer some of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Thank you, Becky. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
I was one for the late arrival. I
Yes.
think I'm a high schooler, and I will just voice my opinion that extra morning of sleep was very beneficial for him to get through the rest of the week, so.
Mrs. Nelson voted yes. I vote yes. That motion passes. Next item is the Bowen Center MOU.
I will go ahead and speak to that if that's okay.
Absolutely.
There have been no changes since the last meeting. This is one of those efforts that goes back to a little bit of what you were talking about, Ryan. Some alternatives we're looking for to meet some of those key student needs. I do believe that Roger has reviewed this, and we're ready to go.
Very good. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Last one is the Finder bus routing agreement.
As you may recall, from our last board meeting, we presented, Doug Dickinson did a great job in providing information about TransFinder. Mr. Young helped us work through the contract, work through some nuances. The contract's come to the satisfactory after meeting with Dr. Glendenning. We would request approval for purchasing TransFinder.
Any questions for Mr. Sprout? I move for approval on that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to put the board meeting on hold and open up a public hearing for our additional appropriations, at which time I would open, is there any public comments for these three topics? The resolution for additional appropriations, the resolution to amend the rainy day purchases, and the resolution to purchase using rainy day funds. If you have a comment, please step up to the microphone. Mrs. Betts, nothing online? Yep. Okay, with that, then, Mrs. Gross, you're up.
Okay. As we've heard in the last few months from Mr. Doty, we have suffered a shortage of revenue in the athletic department due to the restrictions on attendance and ticket sales. Normally, he replaces about $100,000 worth of equipment every year. In order to be able to do that, he's running about $60,000 short in those ticket sales. So he has requested that we use rainy day funds to supplement his equipment needs for next year. So we have published the additional appropriation as required in the Daily Journal and are asking for approval to purchase $60,000 in athletic equipment.
Any questions for Tina?
The only thing I was thinking, so what makes this different than things like under the CARES Act?
Then, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe I'm using the wrong word, but the grant that we talked about at the very beginning.
Federal funds.
The
Why
federal
wouldn't this
fund.
work?
How is this different from federal
Yeah,
funds?
like, why couldn't we include that as part of COVID?
Since it was revenue lost from COVID, right?
Yeah,
They specifically said that we could not include athletic equipment in CARES.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. We talked about that option early on, and for some reason, they targeted specifically athletic
Okay,
equipment.
thank you.
Can I ask, like, what kind of equipment are we, are you talking like helmets and
Football
stuff like
helmets,
that? Okay.
there's a cost of refurbishing the shoulder pads and helmets, and then some of them had to be replaced. And then a lot of the funding is for wrestling mats. We've come to a point where we're going to refurbish one older mat and replace one of the ones that came over from the old high school. So it's
Gotcha.
due.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion for this item?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Christie. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. Thank you. Next one is the amendment to the rainy day purchases.
Yes, so this is a resolution that outlines specifically what we can purchase with rainy day funds. The only wording that I'm proposing to change is what's bolded and underlined under that fourth paragraph, or for any lawful school purpose. When I was looking at this and deciding whether the athletic equipment fell under one of these categories, it does have purchase of equipment, but since it didn't say athletic equipment, it kind of made me pause. And I found this draft in Mr. Mercer's files, but I couldn't find where the board had approved it, and that was back in 2014. So I'm proposing that even if you approved it before, we don't have record of it, so I'm asking for approval just to kind of open that up and make sure that we're covered for any future purposes.
Mr. Young, any concern on that wording? No. All right. Any questions for Tina? Do I have a motion for this item?
Move to approve it.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
I vote yes, that motion passes. And the last one is the resolution to purchase using rainy day funds.
Yes, so this is a resolution that I need to support the actual use of rainy day funds to make these purchases for athletic equipment.
So the first one was the announcement to do the appropriation, and this
Yes.
is actually to, okay.
Yes.
Any questions for Tina? Do I have a motion for this item?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Wertz?
Yep.
Mrs. Ott?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
I vote would pass, so this motion passes. With that, I'll open it up. Do we have any public comments? That, then we'll close the public session and resume the board meeting, moving to the next agenda item, which is discussions. And the first item is the book rental and fees.
Yes, this is kind of phase two. We have a couple of novel changes that faculty are making. I could not find a record that these novels had been approved. I find it hard to believe that Hatchet hasn't been, but it just wasn't in my records. So I went ahead and included it, and Wolf Hollow as well. So those consumables are listed there. You will also see included in this section another component to our curriculum resources. There was a slight increase in GoGuardian software, which is what protects all of our Chromebooks from the outside and also allows teachers to monitor what students are doing on the Chromebooks, especially during assessments. And the remaining components are changes to our social studies rental fees. If you'll remember right, we did not adopt this year. We do plan to adopt social studies curriculum next year, as well as mathematics curriculum and AP chemistry. So next year will be a busy year. But as a result of that, there were some slight changes to those rental fees for this additional year. So those are included there as well.
Any questions for Dr. Worland? All right, thank you. Next item is our policies, the first read.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. We have several that are in the first reading. Many of them are just dealing with legal changes in the law that require changes in our policy making. So that's what we have before us. I would like to highlight one, that's with regard to the collective bargaining. And that is policy 312011. That one's changing. In the past, we've always had a public hearing, but now the wording has to be embedded back into our collective bargaining agreement. When we held the meeting, how we allowed access and notice to the public, And so we'll be working on that, but that's a new law change that really comes up around collective bargaining, and since we're in collective bargaining, I wanted to highlight that. But the rest are really just a few changes based on the law.
Does that affect, I know we haven't passed it yet, but does that affect any of the stipends that we voted on?
It does not.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Yeah, sorry, the ADM count, I haven't read that.
The ADM count just solidifies the actual date, both in the spring and
Okay,
the
so
fall.
they're doing both again?
Now we're doing both again.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? Move on to the next item, which is board administrative comments. Open up for any board comments.
I have a question.
Yep.
And this is going back to book rental and Chromebooks. And have I lost my mind, or when we did the last round of Chromebooks, like Joseph, when he started as a freshman, didn't we say they were going to keep them? Was that something, Matt, am I just totally out of? I really thought we said that,
Seniors kept them?
that they would get to
Kids
keep them
their
after,
Chromebooks
yeah,
after 5 years.
yeah, after the 4 years.
They're not worth anything when they come
Yeah.
back.
I mean, I just
Sure.
thought I was losing my mind when you said, no, we weren't keeping them. I thought, I
Believe
really
it or
thought-
not, we are still working through Chromebooks that have not been paid through textbook rental. And as we purchase those with other funds outside of textbook rental, we want to continue to use those as resources to support the devices that we do have. So devices that are through textbook rental, we can do that, but we also treat them as textbooks. So because they come through textbook rental, if similar to the math or the social studies, if we can continue to use that resource, we want to do so. So.
But did we not say we were going to be able to, I mean, because I know there's going to be other parents who are going to come forward at the end of this 4 years, and not that you're right, they're probably not going to be worth a whole lot, but I want to,
That's a good
before we
point.
get to that next year,
Sure.
for those parents who have paid their book rental, and you'll have
Yeah.
record of that, and they might come forward and say, hey, I don't, it doesn't matter to
They
me
thought
one
they
way or
were
the
buying
other.
it, right? They thought they were paying like 4 annual payments, then they're taking it home.
Right,
I
that,
think
they
that's-
thought
I
that
think
it was
that is
going to
the
be theirs to keep. You remember that?
Yeah,
too?
I thought so too.
Okay.
So last year with textbook, the Chromebooks that we had last year, the seniors kept. We did not need those. And
Right.
similar to with textbook rental, and potentially Dr. Warland or Dr. Clendenny can discuss that. But this year's Chromebooks, we can certainly use.
Okay.
And so as with the textbook rental, if we can continue to use it as a resource within the district, we want to do that.
I think it's
I
less
think
to
what
do
there's-
with the use, it's more about the agreement.
Yes, I think that's what we're talking about. Let's go back and research that, because I know
Okay.
this is really the first time we've had to do it in the whole process.
And I really thought that it was just going to start when Joseph was a
Yep.
freshman. Up until then, everyone was just renting them and giving them back.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
this bit would be for next year's senior class, and like my
Yeah.
niece's, when,
Yeah.
when she started in 5th grade, I really swore that's what we said we were.
We can go back and check that,
Yeah.
and we'll get back to you, that's
But,
fine.
yeah, I
Thank you
mean,
very much.
Yeah,
That's good
thank you.
clarification.
I just wanted to check into
But I also
that.
think if the board can give us direction, if you want to see us that, in that concept, because I think, Mr. Wagner, parents probably do think that, like, hey, you chunked it out in 4
Right.
payments.
Yeah.
It's still, $400 at the end, and we need to talk about that, so, okay,
I feel
we'll
like
go
we
back
need to
and look
stand
at
by
what
our
we're back
Yeah, but-
in next meeting. Thank you, Mrs.
Yeah.
Ott, for.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to know.
No, good question.
Yeah.
I was too on too.
Yeah.
Well, and keep in mind that you really have 3 different groups. You have students that have paid 100%. You have students who are free and reduced, which we've gotten a portion of that from the state. And then you have students that have gone to collections. So we would have to have some kind of tracking mechanism, have to decide if free and reduced, even though we didn't get the entire amount reimbursed, whether they would still get their Chromebooks. So there's a lot to it.
Well, there is, but I just feel that the parents who have made the 4 years of payments, it's starting out thinking, I get to keep this. This is, because I do remember us saying that, this is it's their Chromebook. They pay your 4 years and you get that, so.
So we'll go back to research.
But
that.
I certainly understand if you have not made a payment on it at all,
Yeah.
that you don't get to keep that. That's not yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I do understand that, so, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you, we'll
Okay,
bring that back.
thank you.
Any other board comments?
Mr. Lamb, I do have a couple of things I wanted to bring to the board's attention that came to me too late to make it onto this agenda. The first of those is the city of Franklin is working on a project to add some sidewalk and fitness trail over in the area of Creekside and Custer Baker Intermediate School. And they approached me late last week with a request that the board consider granting an easement for those trails on our property. So my intention is to work with them to prepare that paperwork with the assistance of Mr. Young and bring that to you as an action item for the June meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds
The
good.
second item is related to the web HVAC improvements that Ms. Gross mentioned. I have a proposal from Lancer and BB to provide professional services related to the design work and managing the bid process for that project. And again, I'll have Mr. Young review that document and bring it to you. That one, since we've done business with them before, I would anticipate would be on the June consent agenda.
Okay.
So I'm glad to answer any questions about either one of those items.
No, it sounds like a good plan.
I had a comment.
Sure.
We are, 12 days from the end. And I just am so happy that we are almost there. I mean, as a board, we've worked together, the admins work together, the teachers have worked together. I am so proud to work in a building in this district and that we have done this. I mean, I'm just so proud. So, great job, everybody. I appreciate it. I really do.
Thanks, Becky.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
Any other administrative comments?
Just a reminder, graduation is at 10 o'clock. And if it were to rain, remember we are staying for the day. We're going to keep watching the rain pattern and try to get it in on Saturday. If something happens and Saturday's a no-go, then it will go to Sunday. I know we've had a lot of parents ask, can you solidify that rain date? And so the rain date really is that day. We're going to try to hang in there and do the best we can. And it is 4 tickets for each family. And we are monitoring that. And I know we have some families that may need more. We would ask them just to reach out to Mr. Ahouse. But right now, it's still 4 with everything that's going on.
All right, calendar of events. You just covered the grad. We got last day is the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Culture Club retreat.
That, yes, board, that's also for you as well. That will be listed as a work session, so you all can come if you want. That day, we're meeting at the Legends this year. Normally, remember we go down to Bloomington, but we're not. We're at the Legends. And we will spend the entire day there, and then we're coming back to Legends on Friday for work time with their respective buildings.
And what's the dates for that, please?
3rd and the 4th, June 3rd and 4th, and we're beginning at 8:30.
Mm-hmm, I think so.
Do you want us there? Like, is it
Yes.
Yes, you're more than welcome to attend. We're gonna have Dr. Aziz working with Culture Club and different things throughout the day
On the 3rd,
on the 3rd.
yeah.
Are we going to have a board, a summer finance retreat?
We are going to go back to our normal July. I'm going to get
July.
with Mr. Lamb to pick that time. If you know a time in July that you are blocked out, would you please let us know that? In the past, we've kind of gone back to, I think, that last week, that second, it's either the 3rd or the 4th week in July is when it's been able to fit all of your schedules. So please look at that, and then we'll get that answered and get it back on. And it will be a full-day retreat.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving in then to public comments.
I was one of those parents that actually requested the late start because of the activities after school, but I'm glad that there is, because there was not a plan. There was not a idea by a lot of the parents. So if there is a plan and initiative so that kids can maybe stay, so that the parents don't have, and it is a big deal. Driving back and home, especially where your house may be located at, it can be quite a thing. I will tell you that, speaking of getting to the end of the year, I wound up speaking to a parent that just came into the area. She was setting up a birthday party and just happened to start talking to her, and she was wanting to know about how to get involved in the schools and the system. But the one thing that attracted her to us was how we tried our best to make sure that our elementary schools were in school, and as soon as we could, we'd get to bring the high school and the middle school back to school, and we listened to the parents, and we tried to listen to what was going on here and not nationally, and focus on local. Now, as for the Chromebooks, I will say, whenever it was first came out that we're going to start using Chromebooks, there was a lot of misunderstanding, because first comments I was hearing was, okay, if we're going to start putting everything on the computer, why is the book rental still the same? Oh, we're going to throw in a Chromebook, but I'm not going to be able to keep it, or keep it all year while the kids are in school. That, of course, is changing, thankfully, and one of the plus things of what we learned in COVID. But I think that, yes, we definitely need to be, and that was back when we were working on communication. So I will say there was not a lot of understanding on how or what or where the Chromebooks were being used, and or are we just renting it, or are we going to get it if it's usable at the end? And so that might be causing some of your backlash in some of the payments too. I don't advise that, but you need to pay what you need to pay, what the bill is there. So that's just my ideas, or from my point of view.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Mrs. Betts, do we have any online comments? Okay, with that, then we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.